Imagine venturing into the breathtaking beauty of national parks only to uncover their darkest secrets. For the next 2 hours, we'll delve into the most disturbing cases of women who vanished without a trace in these wild and remote places. Their stories are shrouded in mystery, filled with eerie twists and unanswered questions. In 2015, Catherine Chappell, a renowned visual effects editor for Game of Thrones, left her American home to support wildlife conservation efforts in South Africa, captivated by the beauty of the African wilderness. Born in December 1985 in Westchester County, New York, Catherine lived with her family before graduating from Hofstra University in Long Island. Her career in visual effects took her to Vancouver in 2013, where she quickly established herself as a talented editor. Catherine interned at MSNBC during the winter and spring of 2008 before joining Scanline, where she contributed to some of the most popular entertainment projects. Her skillful touch graced hit series like Game of Thrones and blockbuster movies such as Captain America: The Winter Soldier and Divergence. Her outstanding work on Game of Thrones earned her a Primetime Emmy Award for the episode The Children in the 4th season, marking her as a rising star in the industry. Drawn by a passion for wildlife conservation, Catherine embarked on a journey to South Africa in 2015. Her mission was to support Wildlife Act, a dedicated conservation charity, by contributing to wildlife preservation and raising funds. On June 1, 2015, Catherine's expedition led her to Johannesburg's Lion Park. Accompanied by a tour guide from Calabash Tours, she embarked on an adventure that would forever be etched in memory. Little did she know that the encounter with nature would result in a tragedy that would shake her family, friends, and the world. With her guide by her side, she embarked on a journey to experience the majesty of the lion encampment. Drawn by the allure of capturing a fleeting moment of wildlife magnificence, she opened her window to take a picture. A decision seemingly innocuous, yet it would set off a chain of events that would prove devastating. In an unforeseen and tragic twist, a lion seized the opportunity the open window presented. With a sudden and swift movement, the majestic creature lunged forward and attacked Catherine, inflicting injuries that would prove fatal. The guide, Pierre Pogeter, displayed immense courage in his efforts to protect her, risking his safety to battle the lioness in a valiant attempt to save Catherine's life. However, despite the bravery exhibited by Potgieter, the encounter ended in tragedy. Catherine Chappell's journey was tragically cut short, and her promising career and boundless potential were extinguished instantly. The encounter's aftermath left a trail of sorrow in its wake. Catherine's family was plunged into heartache as news of the incident reached them. Her boyfriend, Grayson Hoare, shared a tearful moment with mourners, recounting his premonitions. He had warned Catherine about the challenges of her venture, urging her to remember that she was only a city girl and to exercise caution in unfamiliar territory. At the memorial gathering, Catherine's sister, Jennifer Chappell, delivered a poignant eulogy that captured the essence of a young woman who had embraced life with unmatched enthusiasm. Jennifer described Catherine as fearless, her spirit untamed by the boundaries of convention. Amidst the collective sorrow, an eyewitness, Ben Govender, offered a first-hand account of the tragedy. He narrated that the lioness stood up on its rear paws, balancing on the vehicle. Then it suddenly lunged forward and grabbed Miss Chappell through the window. Ben added that he saw Potgieter diving into the passenger seat and punching at the lioness. In Ben's narration, the lioness retreated from the car with blood dripping from her mouth and paw after the first bite, but the horror wasn't over yet. The animal staged a second, even more devastating attack, and with that attack, Catherine's face was torn apart. The right side of her chest was gone, with half her shoulder in the lioness's mouth. Ben witnessed this attack while sitting in a car behind Chappell's vehicle. He took a picture of the lioness when it leaped at Catherine's window, not realizing what would happen next. The guide, Pierre Pogeter, displayed bravery beyond measure, yet the toll on his well-being was immense. The stress, the violence, and the adrenaline culminated in a heart attack that would forever link his name with the events that had unfolded. Hospitalized, he reflected on what he deemed the worst experience of his life, a testament to the indelible impact of that fateful day. The aftermath of the tragic incident at the Lion Park stirred a wave of public outcry and scrutiny, as questions were raised about the circumstances that led to Catherine Chappell's untimely demise. Amidst the grief and heartbreak, The actions and responses of those involved became the focal point of intense debate and analysis. As news of the incident spread, the Lyon Park Authority stepped forward to defend the park's practices and regulations. Their assertion was clear. Visitors were consistently instructed to keep their windows closed within the park's premises. This cornerstone rule was designed to ensure the safety of both visitors and the animals that roamed freely. The incident, however, ignited a storm of public outrage, amplified by the fact that Catherine Chappell was no ordinary visitor. Her association with the entertainment industry, particularly her contributions to projects like Game of Thrones and Captain America: The Winter Soldier, lent her a certain celebrity status. Many wondered how such a tragedy could occur to a person of her stature, especially when she was accompanied by a guide during her visit. However, the deed has been done, and Catherine can never be brought back from the dead.
Worry started to spread in the quiet town of Fort Collins. Christine Cummings, a 32-year-old woman, had vanished without a trace, leaving her friends and family in distress. The story began on a winter day, December 29, 2020, when Christine was last seen at home. Days slipped away with an eerie quietness, resembling a faint whisper lost in the wind. A relative, troubled by the unsettling silence over Christine Cummings' absence, finally took action. As the calendar turned to New Year's Day, the distressing news rippled through the community, reaching the attentive ears of Fort Collins Police Services. Responding to the call, officers rushed to Christine's home with a sense of urgency, yearning to unravel the mystery that enveloped her disappearance. Upon arrival, a heavy stillness lingered, amplifying the concern. What was supposed to be a vibrant house on a new year now echoed with silence, and the search intensified without any sign of life. Notably absent was Christine's trusty companion, a black Jeep SUV, which seemed to have vanished along with its owner, adding a layer of perplexity to the unfolding enigma. In the heart of Fort Collins, the quest for answers commenced, each passing moment amplifying the mystery surrounding Christine Cummings' inexplicable disappearance. Fueled by concern and urgency, the investigators delved into the mystery. Christine's family believed she might have embarked on a hiking adventure, a possibility that raised both hope and worry. The detectives found no signs of foul play, adding a layer of mystery to the unfolding tale. Amid worry, Christine's friend Melissa George emerged as a beacon of hope. In an era of digital connections, Melissa took to the online realm, creating a spreadsheet with trails for people to search. A collective effort began, with friends, family, and concerned citizens joining virtually to find their missing friend. Melissa, who had known Christine since 2005, painted a picture of her friend as level-headed and deeply passionate about her life in Fort Collins. The disappearance seemed surreal, as it was entirely out of character for Christine. Concerns echoed through the community, with friends and family bewildered by her sudden absence, unaware of any plans for a grand hiking trip. As the investigation unfolded, Fort Collins police widened their search. They contacted Yellowstone National Park and Rocky Mountain National Park, knowing that Christine was known to explore the trails of these two majestic landscapes. The search expanded beyond city limits, encompassing the vast wilderness where Christine might have ventured. Amidst the worry and uncertainty, details about Christine emerged, creating a vivid image for those searching for her. She drove a 2015 black Jeep SUV with the license plate EOL 263. Christine, a white woman with brown hair and blue eyes, stood 5'7" tall, weighing 140 pounds. Each detail became a beacon for those hoping to spot her in the vastness of nature. Days turned into nights, and the community remained on edge, awaiting news of Christine's safe return. The story of a missing woman unfolded, bringing together a community in shared concern and collective efforts. The quiet town of Fort Collins became a backdrop to a tale of friendship, worry, and the unwavering hope for a happy ending. But despite all efforts, there was no sign of Christine. No one knew where she went and why. Her disappearance is still a mystery, waiting to be solved.
Sarai Sierra, a 33-year-old American woman from Staten Island, New York, embarked on her first solo trip abroad in January 2013, driven by her deep passion for photography. Her journey to Istanbul, Turkey was meant to be a thrilling adventure, with the promise of capturing the city's rich history and vibrant culture through her lens. However, this trip, which was supposed to be a story of artistic exploration and personal growth, ended in a tragedy that shook her family and friends to their core. Originally, Sarai had planned to travel with a friend. However, she decided to venture out alone when those plans fell through at the last minute. Undeterred by the change in plans, Sarai embraced the opportunity to explore Istanbul's iconic landmarks and hidden gems on her terms. With its blend of ancient architecture and bustling modern life, Istanbul was a perfect canvas for her photographic aspirations. Throughout her stay in Istanbul, Sarai maintained regular contact with her family. She shared her experiences and excitement through messages, video chats, and social media posts, giving her loved ones a glimpse into her journey. Sarai's trip was scheduled to end on January 21, 2013, when she was supposed to return home to New York. However, as the day came and went, there was no word from her. When she failed to board her flight back, her family immediately knew something was wrong. Stephen Sierra, Sarai's husband, and her brother, David Jimenez, were gripped by an overwhelming sense of urgency. They decided to travel to Istanbul to assist in the search for Sarai. The city, the backdrop of Sarai's adventure, became the center of their frantic efforts to find her. In Istanbul, Stephen and David worked closely with local authorities, distributing flyers and seeking any information that could lead them to Sarai. The story of the missing American woman quickly garnered media attention, both in Turkey and internationally. The Turkish police launched an extensive investigation, searching through CCTV footage and interviewing locals who might have seen Sarai. As days turned into weeks, the anxiety and fear for Sarai's well-being grew. Her family clung to hope, imagining that she might still be alive and waiting to be found. Yet despite their relentless efforts, leads remained scarce, and the reality of her disappearance became increasingly grim. After an extensive search that lasted nearly 2 weeks, Sarai Sierra's body was discovered on February 2, 2013, near the remnants of the ancient city walls in the Sarayburnu district of Istanbul, Turkey. This area, known for its historical significance and frequent tourist visits, became the tragic endpoint of Sarai's first international trip. The discovery brought a heartbreaking conclusion to an ordeal that had captivated her home community on Staten Island and the international public. When Sarai first went missing, her family and friends were immediately alarmed. She had left her passport, clothes, phone chargers, and medical cards in her rented room in Beyoğlu, indicating she had not planned to disappear voluntarily. This raised immediate red flags about her well-being. The last images of Sarai alive were captured by surveillance cameras on January 21st, showing her in a food court and on a street, wearing the same outfit in which her body was later found. The investigation into her disappearance revealed that Sarai had suffered a fatal blow to the head, confirming she had been murdered. There was no evidence suggesting she had been assaulted, nor were there indications of her involvement in espionage or human trafficking. The location where her body was found was not believed to be the primary crime scene. A blanket found nearby suggested she had been moved post-mortem, as the area was typically crowded with tourists. Turkish authorities launched a comprehensive investigation, questioning at least 9 suspects, including 2 women. The breakthrough in the case came when a homeless man named Ziya Tasali was apprehended. Under interrogation, Tasali confessed to attacking Sarai while she was taking photographs near the city walls. He admitted to attempting to kiss her, and when she resisted, he struck her with a rock, leading to her death. His confession was substantiated by DNA evidence found at the crime scene, conclusively linking him to the murder. In June 2014, Ziya Tasali was convicted of Sarai Sierra's murder and sentenced to life in prison. The case drew widespread media attention, both in Turkey and internationally, highlighting significant concerns about the safety of solo travelers, particularly women. The Swiss Alps have beckoned adventurers and thrill seekers for centuries, with their jutting peaks, pristine glaciers, and crisp mountain air. For Emily Deschanel, a 28-year-old passionate skier and outdoor enthusiast, the magnetic pull of these fabled slopes proved impossible to resist, until nature turned menacingly inhospitable. Emily should have been celebrating her 29th birthday this week. Instead, her family is mourning her disappearance on a treacherous ski trip that claimed the lives of 5 others, including her boyfriend David. It was supposed to be an adventure in the beautiful Swiss Alps, a group of 6 avid skiers trekking from Zermatt to the village of Arola, near the famous Matterhorn Peak. Emily loved sharing her alpine exploits on social media and was thrilled to join David and his relatives on the journey. But Mother Nature had other plans. As the group approached the 400-foot-high Tête Blanche mountain on Saturday afternoon, a brutal storm engulfed them. Blinding snow, howling winds over 70 miles per hour, and bone-chilling temperatures below -20 degrees Celsius. By 5 p.m. on March 10, 2024, one of the skiers managed to send a distress call before the brutal conditions overpowered them. When rescuers finally reached the area on Sunday night, they found 5 frozen bodies scattered across the mountain face: David, his 2 brothers, their cousin, and an uncle. Emily's backpack and skis lay ominously beside them, but despite extensive searches, there was no sign of the young law graduate from Fribourg. Anjan Truffer, the lead rescuer, shared the initial optimism that pervaded the search efforts. Reflecting on the belief in the possibility of miracles, he recounted previous instances where missing individuals had been found alive after several days. However, as the relentless search persisted for a week, hope began to wane. Despite their best efforts scouring the unforgiving terrain, authorities faced the grim reality that Emily might not be found alive. The decision to call off the search left devastated family members grappling with the painful acceptance that their loved one may never be recovered. So what happened to the promising 28-year-old who worked for the local water company? Did she simply wander away from the group, quickly succumbing to the deadly conditions? Or did a horrific fall, perhaps into one of the many crevasses that riddled the area, abruptly end her life that fateful day? Truffer acknowledged the treacherous nature of the terrain, conceding the possibility that Emily might have fallen into one of the numerous crevices scattered throughout the area. However, he stressed that such conjecture remained speculative at best. Despite authorities closing the case, Emily's loved ones grappled with a multitude of unanswered questions. How could someone as experienced in outdoor adventures as Emily, accompanied by 5 other proficient skiers, find themselves so tragically ill-equipped for the ferocious storm that descended upon them? Why had they chosen to traverse such demanding terrain dressed only in light clothing, a decision that seemed to defy common sense? Local mountain guides expressed disbelief and dismay at the situation, with one describing the ominous sight of the approaching storm as a wall of clouds. Their astonishment stemmed from the group's willingness to ski in hazardous conditions. Another guide went further, labeling their decision as negligent, highlighting the recklessness of their actions in the face of obvious danger. Officially, Emily Deschanel remains unfortunately untraceable, according to police. Her body still trapped somewhere in the cruel embrace of the Swiss peaks she adored. But her bright spirit echoes through the mountainsides in the memories of her shattered family and friends. Will her final resting place ever be discovered, allowing her anguished loved ones to lay her to rest properly? Or will the daredevil skier's last moments forever be shrouded in mystery, consumed by the mighty Alps exemplifying beauty and brutality? Only the mountains know for sure. It was about 6:30 a.m. on July 22, 2013, when 66-year-old Geraldine Largay, known as Jerry to her friends, set off from the Poplar Ridge lean-to in western Maine. She was on the Appalachian Trail, a long and challenging hike that stretches over 2,000 miles from Georgia to Maine. Jerry, a retired Air Force nurse from Brentwood, Tennessee, was attempting a through hike, a trek of the entire trail in one continuous journey. Jerry had always been known for her spirit and determination. However, Jerry had some challenges. She had a poor sense of direction and suffered from panic attacks. She was also afraid of the dark and of being alone. But none of these fears had stopped her from pursuing her dream of hiking the Appalachian Trail. Jerry started her journey on April 23, 2013, accompanied by her friend Jane Lee. The plan was to hike together, meeting Jerry's husband George at various points along the trail where he would resupply them. However, on June 30th, Jane had to leave the trail due to a family emergency. Despite Jane's concerns about Jerry's ability to navigate the trail alone, Jerry decided to continue solo. On the morning of July 22nd, Jerry was photographed by a fellow hiker named Dottie Rust. This photograph, taken near a log lean-to, would be the last known image of Jerry alive. She planned to hike to the Spalding lean-to, about 8 miles away, and then continue to the Route 27 crossing where George would be waiting. As she hiked, Jerry left the trail to relieve herself. This seemingly routine detour led to a series of unfortunate events. After stepping off the trail, Jerry became disoriented and lost her way. At around 11:01 a.m., she attempted to text George. "In some trouble. Got off trail to go to BR, now lost. Can you call AMC to see if a trail maintainer can help me? Somewhere north of Woods Road, XOX." Unfortunately, due to poor or non-existent cell service, the message never sent. Jerry continued to try and find her way back to the trail. She moved to higher ground, hoping for a better signal to send her distress messages. She attempted to send the text 10 more times within an hour and a half, all to no avail. On July 23rd, Jerry tried to send another message at 4:18 p.m. "Lost since yesterday, off trail 3 or 4 miles. Call police for what to do PLS XOX. Again, the message failed to send. Over the next several days, she continued to send texts, each one a plea for help that never reached its intended recipient. Meanwhile, George grew increasingly worried. By July 24th, he reported Jerry overdue, prompting one of the largest and most extensive search operations in the history of the Maine Warden Service. The search involved wardens, state police, national park rangers, fire departments, search aircraft, and K-9 teams. Despite their efforts, heavy rains obscured any tracks, and Jerry's whereabouts remained a mystery. Jerry's situation was dire. She had some supplies, a tent, mylar blanket, rain gear, a small amount of food and water, but these would only last so long. She set up camp in a dense part of the forest near the border of U.S. Navy property, an area used for survival training and not easily accessible. She tried to make herself visible by setting small fires, but the dense canopy above her campsite obscured her location from aerial searches. In her journal, Jerry documented her struggle. On August 6th, she wrote a heartbreaking plea. "When you find my body, please call my husband George and my daughter Carrie. It will be the greatest kindness for them to know that I am dead and where you found me, no matter how many years from now. Please find it in your heart to mail the contents of this bag to one of them." Despite her desperate situation, she continued to write in her journal, with entries recorded until August 18th, nearly a month after she went missing. The search efforts continued, with searchers coming within 100 yards of her campsite at one point, but the dense forest and Jerry's hidden location prevented them from finding her. Eventually, the official search was scaled back, though the Warden Service and other volunteers continued to pursue leads and tips. On October 14, 2015, more than 2 years after Jerry went missing, a forester working for the U.S. Navy stumbled upon her campsite. The forester found a flattened tent, a green backpack, and a human skull with a sleeping bag around it. Lieutenant Kevin Adam, one of the key figures in the search efforts, arrived at the scene and was almost certain the remains were Jerry's. The campsite, located less than 2 miles from the Appalachian Trail, was difficult to see unless you were right next to it. Jerry had constructed a bedding area out of small trees, pine needles, and possibly some dirt to keep her tent dry. She had also tied a space blanket between branches to provide some cover. Nearby trees showed signs of human-made fire attempts. The Warden Service later confirmed that the remains were indeed Jerry's. A medical examiner ruled that she had died from exposure and lack of food. Her supplies had dwindled, and despite her efforts to signal for help, she remained unseen and unheard in the dense forest. It was Tuesday, August 25, 2020, and Anne-Marie Jeffrey woke up in a great mood. How could she not when she was spending quality time with some of the people she liked best in the entire world? At 73 years old, Anne-Marie was a cheerful person. She and her husband David loved traveling and going on little adventures, and this was nothing short of an adventure. The couple and some of their friends were on a camping trip at Lake Aragon, Urigere National Park in New South Wales, Australia. The previous day had been idyllic. They had arrived at the campsite at about 10 a.m., set up their camp, and walked down to the beach. Then the group gathered around a campfire, exchanging stories and enjoying the natural beauty of the area, before retiring for the night at about 10 p.m. Some much-needed rest was in order. Overjoyed by the quality time they'd spent together and looking forward to the wonders of tomorrow, Anne-Marie and her husband David slept soundly. The group woke up early the next morning, at about 8 a.m., Anne-Marie walked to the toilet block nearby. Then she returned to the camp and began cooking breakfast. As they ate breakfast, the group made plans for the day. They decided to split up. As such, two of the women decided to head south on a dry track. Anne-Marie decided to join her husband and another friend and head north, on a trail with wetter conditions. Before leaving, though, Anne-Marie mentioned she needed to visit the toilet one last time, just to make sure she was truly ready for the hike. This quick, natural decision set in motion a chain of events that would leave Anne-Marie's friends and family confused and deeply hurt. As she made her way toward the amenities block, Anne-Marie stopped to talk to a fellow camper, a woman standing in front of a caravan. The two women exchanged pleasantries and shared their enthusiasm about the campsite and the beauty surrounding them. Anne-Marie pointed out her group and campsite and made some more small talk before heading to the amenities area. Soon after, she exited the toilet block and walked past the camper. But they didn't speak that second time. And sometime after, in those mysterious and perplexing minutes, Anne-Marie Jeffrey vanished from the face of the world, unseen. Back at their camp, David Jeffrey was growing anxious. His wife hadn't returned from the amenities area. When another woman from their group came back from the toilets without seeing Anne-Marie, David became truly worried. He searched the toilets to no avail, then returned to the camp and informed the group that Anne-Marie was missing. He immediately jumped in his car, drove around the campground, and asked anyone he met if they had seen his wife. Finding nothing, David was worried sick. About 30 minutes later, he informed the campground manager, who contacted the police to report her disappearance. The authorities acted quickly, organizing a thorough search of the area. Despite their best efforts using helicopters, drones, and ground teams, no trace of Anne-Marie was found. An inquest into Anne-Marie's disappearance noted that the search had commenced promptly and was carried out diligently, but the lack of any trace of Anne-Marie remained a mystery. Despite this, the court also heard that Anne-Marie had been diagnosed with epilepsy in 2013. In 2019, a year before her disappearance, Anne-Marie visited a neurologist after suffering from disorientation, which was particularly apparent in unfamiliar settings. The doctor revised her medication and noted her condition had improved and stabilized by June 2020. Although the coroner couldn't determine Anne-Marie's cause of death, she ruled it was likely she died in the vicinity of the Lake Aragon and Red Cliff campgrounds. David Jeffrey, Anne-Marie's husband, was devastated. He spoke extensively and fondly of their life together, noting how the two of them had spent 46 fulfilling years together, taking care of their two children and working together as a great team.
Yellowstone National Park has many secrets hidden within its vast boundaries. The disappearance of Tylee Ryan and her younger brother J.J. Vallow is one of its secrets revealed a year later. Tylee Ryan and her adopted younger brother J.J. Vallow were two siblings. J.J. was an extraordinary boy with autism. They were like other children, filled with laughter and dreams, brightening their parents' world. Tylee, born September 24, 2002, had a radiant smile that could light up the darkest days. JJ, a playful 7-year-old, brought joy and excitement to their household. Little did they know that their lives were about to take a devastating turn. The family went to Yellowstone National Park, where both kids mysteriously disappeared on September 8, 2019. Tylee was Lori Vallow's daughter from her third husband. Her intense cries give the impression that she loved her kids a lot. However, no one knew the true story behind that. As the days passed, whispers of suspicious events surrounded the family. Tylee and JJ's mother, Lori Vallow, had a complex history with multiple husbands, and questions were raised about the circumstances of her previous spouses' deaths. In the whispers, Lori's ex-husband Charles met a tragic end, further casting a mysterious turn on the family. The FBI, Idaho Police Department, and the locals rallied in an attempt to locate the kids, hoping for their safe return. However, the search uncovered not only the disappearance of the children, but also a series of unsettling events. As investigators delved more deeply, they uncovered a string of mysterious deaths connected to Lori Vallow. Her third husband, Joseph Ryan, had met an untimely demise, raising questions about the dark cloud that seemed to follow Lori. The shadow of suspicion loomed over the family, and the once close-knit community was in the middle of an unfolding tragedy. The situation took a grim turn when the coroner testified during Lori Vallow's murder trial, revealing the heartbreaking details of Tylee Ryan's demise. The cause of her death was labeled a homicide, but the manner remained unspecified. The town was left in shock, grappling with the incomprehensible loss of innocent souls. Court documents later revealed the horrifying manner in which siblings JJ and Tylee were found in Chad Daybell's yard in 2020. The details painted a chilling picture of the events leading to their tragic end, sending shivers through the community. The discovery sent ripples of sorrow across the town as the reality of the cold-blooded acts committed against these innocent children became apparent. The investigation continued, unraveling a web of deceit and darkness. Chilling details emerged, exposing the depth of the tragedy. Shallow graves in Chad Daybell's property became the final resting place for Tylee and JJ. The once peaceful town now grappled with the aftermath of a crime that shattered the community's sense of security and belief in motherhood. The total weight of Lori Vallow's actions came to light in the courtroom. The trial unfolded, revealing the harrowing attempts to cover up the horrific crime. Lori faced charges of first-degree murder, conspiracy, and grand theft in connection with the deaths of her children. The court proceedings painted a sad picture of a mother-turned-culprit, leaving the community in mourning and disbelief. As the trial continued, the community grappled with the aftermath of this heartbreaking incident. Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow, once the source of joy and laughter, became symbols of a tragedy that forever changed the lives of those who knew them. The echoes of their story served as a sad memory of the delicacy of innocence in the face of darkness. It was the early morning of August 1st, 2018, when Samantha Sayers left her apartment in Seattle and set out on a journey that would forever alter the course of her life. At 27 years old, Samantha, whom friends called Sam, was a fit woman with a love for the outdoors. Sam could take on any challenge. That Wednesday, she planned a solo hike on the Vesper Peak Trail in Washington State's North Cascade National Park. This particular trail was a challenge for even the most seasoned hikers, its rugged terrain making it treacherous even in the face of experience. But for Sam, it was just another day in her adventurous life. She had hiked the Vesper Peak Trail before. Even more, she grew up going on camping trips quite often. Hiking was in her blood. Before leaving her home in Seattle, Sam sent a quick text to her boyfriend, 33-year-old Kevin Dares, telling him she loved him and letting him know she was going to be back home by 6 p.m. that evening. She left her apartment at about 8 a.m. and drove her blue Ford Fiesta along the Mountain Loop Highway to the Sunrise Mine Road, where one of the paths to the summit of Vesper Peak begins. She parked her car and then signed her name in the Forest Park Registry. She was a calculated individual who didn't like to take unnecessary risks. Sam then started the more than 4,000-foot climb, which lay ahead of her. There were other hikers on the path that Wednesday. Sam wasn't someone you could forget easily, and the other hikers could feel it. On that sunny day, the woman was dressed in a pair of gray workout leggings and a sports bra. She carried a hiking pole in each hand and had a black backpack. Most noteworthy, however, was her bald head, a pattern of stars which had been designed by her mother, Lisa. Sam had been diagnosed with alopecia back in high school and made the conscious decision to always shave her head since she found wigs to be uncomfortable. At some point during the hike, Sam stopped to have lunch alongside another hiker. She enjoyed her sandwich she'd packed for lunch, then made it to the summit at about 3 p.m. There, she took in the breathtaking views and spoke for a little while to others at the summit. She also checked her phone. She left soon after, choosing to descend the mountain's southwest side. By 7:15 p.m. that night, Kevin Dares, Sam's boyfriend, was already on the road. He knew Sam very well. He knew she was always prepared, that she always stuck to her timeline or let him know if she was going to be late. Kevin had waited anxiously for her to return for about an hour before leaving to search for his girlfriend. He stopped at a gas station along the way to get a flashlight. It was getting dark, and even though he enjoyed hiking himself, he wasn't half as experienced as Sam. He knew climbing the Vesper Peak Trail was going to be hard, but he had to do it. Kevin found Samantha's car still parked at the trailhead. Hours later, Kevin eventually fell on the treacherous trail, breaking his flashlight in the process. It was pitch black, and it became clear to Kevin that he needed help. Desperate and without options, he called 911. The official search for Samantha Sayers began at about 1 a.m. It became one of the most extensive in Washington State's recent history. At first, a team of volunteers and a helicopter equipped with infrared technology scoured the area. Authorities spoke to several witnesses and were able to figure out the timeline of Sam's hike up until her disappearance. In the meantime, Kevin took to social media, where he created a Facebook page and launched a GoFundMe campaign to raise funds for the search. Sam's mother, Lisa, found out about her daughter's disappearance through Facebook and flew to Seattle immediately after. After 22 days of searching for Samantha, with the help of 70 searchers on foot, 14 dog teams, witnesses, and helicopters, authorities ceased the efforts. The budget for the search had run dry, and with no leads, authorities concluded that Samantha Sayers had likely died in a fall. As of 2021, no trace of Samantha Sayers had been found. Sam's mother, Lisa, believes her daughter is still alive somewhere, perhaps a victim of human trafficking. What do you think happened to Samantha Sayers?
Eva Liu, a 21-year-old from Naperville, Illinois, embarked on an eagerly anticipated trip to Neuschwanstein Castle in Bavaria with her close friend and classmate Kesley Chang. She completed her junior and high school education and earned her bachelor's and master's degrees in computer science from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Eva was excited to unwind from the stresses of academia before starting her professional career as a software engineer at Microsoft. On a clear day on June 14, 2023, they decided to hike near the Marienbrücke Bridge, a narrow footbridge 300 feet above a gorge, offering breathtaking views of Neuschwanstein Castle, one of Germany's most famous tourist attractions. The day's excitement was palpable as they marveled at the stunning scenery. However, their adventure took a tragic turn when they met a third party. While hiking near the Marienbrücke Bridge, they met Troy Philip Bowling, a 30-year-old U.S. national who conversed with them. Bowling, seemingly friendly and knowledgeable about the area, told the young women about a secluded trail that led to a good lookout point, with a much better view of the castle for selfies. Trusting his expertise, Eva and Kesley followed him off the main path. As they walked, the trail became increasingly isolated, but Bowling reassured them that they were close to a fantastic spot. Once Bowling was sure they were far enough from the main trail, he suddenly turned on Eva, pushing her to the ground. He tried to undress her with the explicit intention of assaulting her. Stunned and terrified, Eva struggled to fend him off. Kesley, seeing her friend in danger, rushed to help. A desperate scuffle ensued, and Bowling, much more vital and intent on his attack, choked Kesley, rendering her helpless before pushing her down a steep slope. Kesley tumbled approximately 50 meters, sustaining a head injury along with multiple bruises and scrapes, but she survived. Meanwhile, Bowling turned his attention back to Eva. He strangled her until she lost consciousness, and then proceeded to assault her. After his brutal attack, he callously pushed her down the slope as well. Eva's fall was fatal, exacerbated by the trauma she had already endured. When rescuers eventually reached the scene, they found Kesley injured but alive, while Eva had succumbed to her injuries. The violent attack left the idyllic scene marred by tragedy, turning a joyous trip into a nightmare. A mountain rescue team reached both women after the harrowing incident. Kesley Chang, who was responsive, was quickly taken to a hospital for treatment. Eva Liu, in critical condition, was airlifted by helicopter to another hospital. Despite the medical team's best efforts, she succumbed to her injuries overnight. The suspect, Troy Philip Bowling, fled the scene but was apprehended shortly after in the vicinity. Bowling's trial began with his admission of guilt to charges of murder and sexual assault. His lawyer, Philip Muller, acknowledged the gravity of his client's actions. stating that Bowling had committed an unfathomable crime. The prosecution presented evidence, including a laptop and cell phone seized from Bowling, which contained child sexual abuse material. Authorities confirmed that the two women had no prior acquaintance with Bowling before their fateful meeting near Neuschwanstein. During the trial, Mueller argued that Bowling's actions were not intended. He acted spontaneously and is deeply ashamed of his actions, Mueller told the court. Despite this defense, the charges against Bowling were severe. He faced counts of murder, sexual assault with fatal consequences, attempted murder, and possession of child sexual abuse videos. In Germany, a murder conviction carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. The additional charges only compounded the severity of Bowling's impending sentence.
Patricia Wu Murad woke up early on April 10, 2023. The 60-year-old, whom friends called Patty, was on vacation. She had left her home in Connecticut and was now on a solo hiking adventure in Japan, exploring the ancient trails of the Kumano-Kodo. It was meant to be one of her final treks before meeting up with her husband, Kirk Murad, and going on a trip to Spain in June. Patty was no stranger to adventure, especially if said adventures involved going on treks along breathtaking trails. She had embarked on countless journeys on her own, from Spain to Jordan. She loved meeting new people on these routes. She loved exchanging stories and forging connections that would last a lifetime. Patty was a trusting person, which helped her make new friends everywhere she went. This time she was exploring Japan's spiritual trails. She aimed to hike from the Mondokoro guest house in the little town of Higashiomi to Osaka, where she was going to meet up with some friends from Connecticut. She also had a room booked at a hostel in Osaka. It was a long journey, one that would take about 9 hours on foot. That's why Patty woke up at 7 a.m. on that Monday. She was excited for her hike and couldn't wait for it to start, even though she had been experiencing some upsetting toe pain, which she had told Kirk about 3 days before. After waking up, Patty went to check out of the Mondokoro guest house. The guest house's owner, a respected member of the local community, offered to walk Patty to the trailhead. He always helped tourists start their journey. Soon enough, they arrived at the trailhead and they parted ways. Patty made her way through the dense forest and was soon out of sight. Hours later, in Osaka, Patty's friends started to worry. It was already late in the evening and there was no sign of the woman. When she failed to check into her hostel, alarm bells started ringing. Japanese authorities were notified about her disappearance. Searches began immediately, with Japanese police, volunteers, and even American rescue teams combing the trails and surrounding areas. Patty's husband, Kirk Murad, was notified about the woman's disappearance on April 13th, after the police's initial 72-hour search concluded. Kirk and the couple's children traveled to Japan to take part in the search themselves. They were also able to hire their own search and rescue team to supplement the search efforts. Helicopters buzzed overhead, drones scanned the terrain, and sniffer dogs scoured the trail. But Patty was nowhere to be found. Despite everyone's efforts, there was no sign that Patty had ever entered the trail she was supposed to hike. The lack of evidence made Japanese authorities call off the official search on May 7th. Mountain Works, a local rescue team, held out a bit longer, but they stopped by the end of May. Patty had disappeared into thin air. Kirk and one of his daughters, Murphy, decided to attempt to track down cell tower data, but even they knew the lack of evidence was discouraging. They even stopped accepting donations through the GoFundMe campaign they'd set up when Patty disappeared. Kirk Murad now believes that something sinister happened to his wife. He thinks Patty might have accepted a ride from someone she shouldn't have. He believes she was abducted and never even began her hike, but there are no suspects. It was about 5:30 a.m. on October 15, 2023, when Ingrid Colleen Lane told her husband, Louis Scuderi, that she was heading to a Buddhist retreat center. Ingrid had been there many times before, especially when she needed some time away for her mental health, or simply a place where she could relax and recharge. At 37 years old, Ingrid, who lived in Albuquerque with her husband and their cats, was a bioengineer who worked in scientific research. Ingrid's job was important and demanding. That's why she needed a place where she could find solace and spiritual growth. The woman left her home soon after talking to her husband, driving away in her black 2019 Subaru Impreza hatchback. From here, the details get murky. She drove for a while before hitting Forest Road 144 in the Yemez Mountains, one of the most remote and wild areas in New Mexico, 100 miles north of Albuquerque. Soon after, Ingrid realized she had a flat tire. She flagged down a group of hunters and asked them for help with the tire. The men kindly offered to take Ingrid to a nearby town, but she declined vehemently. The woman told the hunters she was trying to hike to the Buddhist retreat, but she didn't mention which route she planned to follow. The hunters helped Ingrid inflate her tire and then left. 3 days later, on October 18th, Ingrid's husband Louis reported her missing. It wasn't unusual for the woman to go without contacting anyone for a day. 2 days without contact were a little out of the ordinary, but not disturbingly so. By the third day, Louis Scuderi was sure his wife needed help. The police found Ingrid's black Subaru on the very same day. The car was abandoned and had a shattered window. They made an even more baffling discovery inside the car, where they found a burner phone still in its unopened package. Louis was equally confused by this discovery. He had no idea why his wife would have purchased something like that. As such, the burner phone raised troubling questions about what might have happened during those 3 days. Police then found out that the car's rear window had been shattered at the moment Ingrid spoke with the hunters. Even more, the Zen Center confirmed Ingrid had been there 3 days before at about 9 a.m., but they also said she'd left soon after without disclosing her plans. With so many confusing details, authorities could do nothing but search for the missing woman. To make matters worse, the location where Ingrid vanished was remote, high elevation, and far beyond cell phone range. When Ingrid's twin sister and mother arrived in New Mexico to help with the search, a local sheriff told them this was an easy area to get lost in. Search and rescue teams combed the area, but the trail went cold quickly. Dog teams lost Ingrid's scent, indicating that she might have gotten a ride further into the mountains. Ingrid's family was thrown into turmoil. They brought a four-wheel drive truck to access the rugged backcountry, hoping to cover ground that search teams couldn't reach. Ingrid's twin sister took to social media, asking for help and seeking advice. They were especially concerned since Ingrid had been known to suffer from sleep issues and a rare lung condition that worsened in cold weather. Her mental health was also a concern, but the family believed Ingrid still had plans and couldn't have gone up the mountain without meaning to get back. But there were no leads, no suspects, and no answers. As of 2024, Ingrid Colleen Lane is still missing.
Janine Vaughn, a vibrant 31-year-old woman from Bathurst, New South Wales, led a life of laughter and adventure. Born and raised in the tight-knit community of Bathurst, Janine was known for her outgoing personality and love of sports. From a young age, she excelled in netball, basketball, and softball, her competitive spirit driving her to new heights of achievement. As she grew older, Janine's passion for sports led her to participate in local leagues and tournaments, where she quickly gained a reputation as a powerful opponent on the court. Despite her athletic expertise, Janine's true joy lay in the simple pleasures of life, spending time with friends, exploring the beauty of the Australian countryside, and immersing herself in the vibrant culture of her hometown. With her infectious laughter and boundless energy, Janine was a beloved figure in Bathurst, cherished by all who knew her. On the evening of December 7, 2001, Janine went out to the Metro Tavern, a popular local bar known for its lively atmosphere and bustling crowds. Accompanied by friends, she embraced the spirit of the night, her laughter mingling with the sounds of music and conversation that filled the air. As the hours passed and the night grew late, Janine found herself drawn to the promise of adventure that awaited her outside the confines of the tavern. It was shortly before 4 a.m. when Janine stepped out into the cool night air, her senses heightened by the thrill of the unknown. As she approached a red car parked outside the Metro Tavern, a sense of anticipation coursed through her veins, mingling with the electric energy of the night. In a fleeting moment captured by the unblinking eye of CCTV, Janine vanished into the darkness, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and shattered hopes. The days that followed Janine's disappearance were filled with anguish and uncertainty, as her family and friends struggled with the reality of her absence. Despite extensive investigations by law enforcement agencies, Janine's fate remained a mystery, her whereabouts unknown and her fate uncertain. For Janine's sister, Kylie Speldy, the passage of time only deepened the wounds left by her sister's absence. Each day brought new challenges and doubts, yet Kylie remained steadfast in her search for answers, refusing to give up hope that Janine would return home one day. As the years stretched into decades, Janine's disappearance cast a long shadow over the community of Bathurst. As the investigation into Janine's disappearance continued, theories abounded as to what may have happened to her on that tragic December night. Some speculated that Janine may have been the victim of foul play, lured into the red car by a stranger's charm. Others suggested that she may have willingly entered the vehicle, seeking an escape from the pressures of her everyday life. In March 2019, a glimmer of hope emerged as authorities announced a $1 million reward for information leading to Janine's whereabouts. However, as the years stretched on and the trail grew colder, the truth remained a mystery, forever out of reach for those left behind to mourn.
Our story started in West Virginia's hills, where a young girl named LaKayla Shea Putnick lived. She was 14, with brown hair that danced in the wind and brown eyes that sparkled with curiosity. Shea had been in the care of the West Virginia Child Protective Services, a guardian watching over her well-being. One day, the course of Shea's life took an unforeseen turn. The Child Protective Services decided to place her temporarily with a foster family in the vast landscapes of Wyoming. The foster family, kind-hearted and hopeful, embraced Shea into their fold. Was their kindness genuine, though? As the summer sun painted the skies, Shea found herself on an adventure with her foster family to Yellowstone National Park. The majestic mountains, the bubbling natural geysers, and the wild beauty of nature surrounded them. Little did they know that this pleasing trip would become the setting for an unforeseen chapter. On August 7, 2018, Shea, with her heart full of wanderlust, decided to change the course of her journey. During their visit to Yellowstone, she left her foster family, the safety net that had momentarily cradled her dreams. The reasons behind her departure were known only to her, leaving a cloud of uncertainty. The news of Shea's disappearance echoed through the corridors of Kanawha County Sheriff's Department. They became the investigators, unraveling the mystery of a missing girl. As days turned into nights, Shea's absence cast a shadow over the picturesque wilderness of Yellowstone. No contact was made. No words reached the ears of family or authorities. It was as if Shea had become a fleeting whisper in the vastness of the national park, leaving everyone with unanswered questions. The Sheriff's Department, armed with concern and determination, dug into the puzzle of Shea's whereabouts. They discovered that Shea had ties not only to the wild terrains of Wyoming, but also to the city lights of Billings, Montana. Her connections spread like threads across the states: Wyoming, Colorado, West Virginia, and even reaching the sunny shores of Florida. The description of Shea painted a vivid picture for those searching for her. She stood at 5 foot 4 inches, a silhouette against the backdrop of diverse landscapes. Her brown hair framed a face that had witnessed both the challenges and joys of 14 years, while her brown eyes held the secrets of a soul on a journey of self-discovery. Shea's physical presence weighed approximately 130 pounds, a detail that had become a crucial marker for those hoping to find her. Days turned into weeks, and the search continued. The story of Shea unfolded across state lines, a tale of a missing girl with a past guarded by the West Virginia Child Protective Services, a present intertwined with a Wyoming foster family, and a future that remained uncertain. The people involved in Shea's story, Her foster family, the law enforcement officers, and the community held on to hope. The vastness of Yellowstone National Park, once a symbol of adventure, now became a daunting landscape echoing the silence of a missing presence. Still, after a lengthy investigation and search, Shay needed help. Her sudden disappearance left so many questions. Some questions were asked about the kindness and sincerity of the foster family. Were they properly taking care of her? Were there any disputes between Shay and her foster family? But these questions remain unanswered, as Shay never returned. No one knew what happened to her. And so the pages of Shay's story turned with each passing day, a narrative waiting for resolution, a conclusion to the mystery that unfolded in the heart of the wilderness.
March 1st marked the beginning of what was meant to be a journey of self-discovery for 26-year-old Jenny Chen, a resident of Seattle's Wallingford neighborhood. With a backpack slung over her shoulders and a sense of anticipation in her heart, she set off on a 2-month expedition through the vibrant landscapes of Mexico. For Jenny, this trip was not just an escape from the monotony of daily life. It was a chance to explore new horizons, embrace the unknown, and find herself amidst the chaos of unfamiliar surroundings. Born in China, Jenny had always had an adventurous spirit and a thirst for exploring and transcending borders and boundaries. This innate curiosity drew her to Seattle, where she had found solace in the city's eclectic blend of cultures and communities. But as she stood on the threshold of her latest adventure, Jenny knew she was going on a journey unlike any other, a trip that would test her courage, resilience, and faith in the unknown. For Jenny's husband, Jonathan Reinhardt, the decision to let his wife go on this solo expedition was not easy. As he watched her board the plane bound for Mexico, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gnawed at his insides. But he knew that Jenny needed this trip and the chance to spread her wings and fly, even if it meant facing dangers beyond home safety. The first few weeks of Jenny's trip passed without incident as she traveled through the bustling streets of Mexico City and wandered at the different tourist spots present there. Her social media posts were filled with snapshots of her adventures, each capturing a moment of exhilaration and wonder. But as she went further south into Oaxaca, the tone of her updates began to change. It was April 12th when Jenny's last message was sent, a brief note informing her friends that she was hitchhiking to Cancun. It was a decision that would prove to be her undoing as she unwittingly stepped into the path of danger. For Jonathan, the days that followed were a blur of frantic phone calls and desperate pleas for help. He contacted government agencies and local authorities, begging for help locating his wife. But his efforts were met with indifference and apathy, as bureaucratic red tape and jurisdictional disputes hampered his attempts to find answers. When Jonathan hired a private investigator, he uncovered the truth behind Jenny's disappearance. Through tireless investigation, they traced her route from Oaxaca to Juchitán, where eyewitnesses reported seeing her hitchhiking by the side of the road. And then a discovery was made. A witness came forward with information about a Corona beer truck that had stopped to offer Jenny a ride. But as Jonathan delved deeper into the mystery, he found himself confronted with more questions than answers. Who was the driver of the truck? And what had become of Jenny after she climbed inside? As the days passed, Jonathan refused to give up hope. He continued pressuring forward, rallying friends, family, and strangers' support. Through social media campaigns and fundraising efforts, he sought to amplify his voice, to demand justice for his wife and closure for those who loved her. But amidst the chaos and uncertainty, one question loomed in Jonathan's mind. What if Jenny was never found? What if she had disappeared without a trace, lost to the vast expanse of Mexico's rugged terrain? The thought was unbearable for Jonathan, a nightmare he could not escape. And so he clung to the hope that Jenny Chen was waiting to be found somewhere out there amidst the chaos and confusion. Until that day, he would never stop searching for or fighting for the truth. Ultimately, it was the only thing that mattered, the only thing that could bring him peace in the face of uncertainty and despair.
Susan Bennett, a 61-year-old woman from Bellingham, Washington, had a profound love of the mountains that spanned over a decade. She wasn't just a casual hiker, she was a dedicated climber, a beloved member of the mountaineers community, and an inspiration to all who knew her. Her story wasn't just about a tragic accident. It was about a life lived to the fullest. It was a dry yet cold morning in July 2017 when Susan and her companions set out on their trip into the heart of Washington's North Cascades National Park. The air was fresh, tinged with the scent of pine and anticipation, as they went on the torment-forbidden traverse, a challenging route that promised breathtaking views and exhilarating climbs. For Susan, it was a familiar path, one she had traveled many times before, with the grace and confidence of an experienced mountaineer. As they made their way along the south ridge of Torment, Susan and her team encountered the first obstacle of their journey, a sudden downpour that soaked their gear and threatened to dampen their spirits. But Susan was undeterred, her determination shining through as she rallied her companions and pressed onward toward their goal. For her, the mountains were more than just a playground. They were a sanctuary, a place where she felt most alive and at peace. As the day wore on, the weather cleared and the sun emerged from behind the clouds. It was a moment of peace and rest amidst the chaos of the climb, a reminder of the beauty that surrounded them and the privilege of being able to experience it firsthand. For Susan, it was a moment of pure joy. But as they approached the notch below the west ridge of Forbidden Peak, something tragic happened that would change everything. In a split second, Susan's world was turned upside down as she lost her footing and tumbled down the mountainside, her screams echoing through the valleys below. It was a moment of sheer terror as her companions looked on in horror, powerless to stop the inevitable. As Susan's body disappeared from view, her companions sprang into action, activating an emergency beacon and summoning help from the authorities. But as they waited for help to arrive, they couldn't help but wonder, what if they had taken a different route? What if they had turned back when the weather took a turn for the worse? What if they had never gone on this trip in the first place? For Susan's friends and family, the days that followed were filled with anguish and uncertainty as they waited for news of what happened to her. The authorities launched a rescue mission, braving the dangerous terrain and unforgiving weather in search of any sign of Susan's whereabouts. But as the hours turned into days, hope began to fade, replaced by a sense of resignation and acceptance. Finally, on August 12th, nearly 3 weeks after Susan's fall, her body was recovered from the depths of a crevasse on Forbidden Glacier. It was a bittersweet moment for her loved ones as they struggled with the reality of her loss and the finality of her passing. As her friends and family gathered to say their final goodbyes, they couldn't help but reflect on the legacy that Susan had left behind. She wasn't just a climber, she was a teacher, a mentor, and a friend. Her love for the mountains had touched the lives of countless individuals, inspiring them to reach new heights and overcome their own obstacles. And as they looked out over the majestic peaks that had claimed her life, they couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the time they had shared with her and the memories they would carry with them forever. In the end, Susan's story was not just a story of the dangers of climbing. It was a celebration of a life well lived, a life dedicated to pursuing her passions and embracing the beauty of the world around her. And though she may be gone, her spirit lives on in the hearts of all who knew her, forever immortalized in the mountains she loved so dearly.
On June 24, 1998, Joanne Butterfield vanished from her Mossman home, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and lingering mystery. At 37 years old, Joanne was a woman with a plan, or so it seemed. With her vibrant auburn hair and piercing blue eyes, she embarked on a journey that would ultimately confound investigators for decades. At around 9 a.m. that day, Joanne was last seen by her loved ones, her presence filled with anticipation for adventure as she prepared to hitchhike south. A free spirit by nature, she had shared her intentions with friends, igniting a glimmer of concern among those who knew her best. Little did they know, this would be the last time they'd see her radiant smile or hear her laughter. As the days passed by, the mystery deepened. Joanne's aspects, including her cherished Tweety bird tattoo adorning her chest and a bluebird tattoo on her shoulder, became ominous clues in a puzzle with no clear solution. Her belongings were discovered in disparate locations, scattered like breadcrumbs along an uncertain path. 3 days after her disappearance, Joanne's possessions were found near a lookout. The discovery shocked the community, raising more questions than answers about what truly happened to the vibrant woman with dreams of distant horizons. In a twist that only added to the mystery surrounding her disappearance, an envelope containing Joanne's Medicare card, bank cards, and personal documents arrived at her Mossman home days later, delivered anonymously as if to taunt those desperately seeking answers. Despite exhaustive efforts by law enforcement, Joanne's fate remained shrouded in mystery. The passage of time did little to lessen the burning desire for closure for her family and a community haunted by the unresolved tragedy. 2 decades later, hope flickered anew as fresh leads reignited the investigation into Joanne's disappearance. Acting Inspector Kevin Goen spearheaded the renewed efforts, spurred by recent tip-offs that breathed new life into a case long considered cold. An investigation in 2014 provided little solace, suggesting the chilling possibility that Joanne met her demise at the hands of unknown assailants. With each passing day, the urgency to reveal the truth intensified. Detectives combed through old leads with renewed vigor, spotlighting 2 individuals who may be vital to unlocking the secrets of Joanne's final moments. Their search for justice led them back to the streets of Mossman, where memories of Joanne lingered. The investigation pressed forward, and despite the passage of years, the hope for closure burned unwaveringly bright, fueled by the steadfast determination of a son who refused to let his mother's memory fade into obscurity. For Thorne Niker, Joanne's disappearance was more than just a cold case. It was a personal search for truth in a world shrouded in shadows. With each step he took, he honored his mother's memory. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but Thorne remained undeterred, driven by a sense of purpose transcending time and space. As he went on a trip to know the truth about what happened to his beloved mother, he carried with him the hopes and dreams of a family torn by the cruel hand of fate. What if Joanne's disappearance was not an act of random chance, but a carefully orchestrated plot conceived by people with sinister intentions? Only time would tell as the wheels of justice turned slowly, inexorably, toward a hidden truth waiting to be brought into the light.
At the end of autumn in 2001, Louise Chaput, a 52-year-old psychologist from Sherbrooke, Quebec, set off on a solo hiking adventure to the White Mountains, an area famous for its tough landscape and harsh weather. Louise, a skilled and enthusiastic hiker, intended to spend the weekend discovering the stunning scenery of the Presidential Range, a place she had previously frequented and loved for its beauty. It was clear to those close to Louise that she had a strong interest in nature and outdoor activities. Described as a kind person who helped others and had a great sense of humor, Louise found comfort and happiness in the peacefulness of the wilderness. Even with her busy schedule as a family and marital psychologist, Louise always found a way to prioritize her favorite outdoor activities. In the afternoon of Thursday, November 15, 2001, Louise reached the Pinkham Notch Visitor Center in New Hampshire, prepared to start her hiking journey alone. Excited to move around after the long car journey, she took a brief walk, leaving her silver Ford Focus estate car parked in the parking area. Witnesses reported that Louise asked about a suitable path for a short trip. The Lost Pond Trail across the street was suggested by a staff member at the visitor center. Louise, showing her appreciation, went toward the trail, expecting to be back before evening. Time went by, but Louise did not come back to her lodge as she had intended. Worried about her safety, her family informed the authorities that she was missing. A search and rescue operation took place with the participation of various agencies and volunteers. In spite of the difficult conditions caused by severe weather and rough terrain, search teams tirelessly combed the area, eager to uncover any sign of the lost hiker. Louise's car was found abandoned at the Glen Falls parking area, near the trailhead where she began her hike. Back then, nobody knew it would be the last time she'd be seen alive. The grim finding increased concerns about her well-being and escalated the search endeavors. But it wasn't until the 22nd of November, the day of Thanksgiving, that the search efforts would bear fruit. While hiking the Glen Boulder Trail near Mount Washington, hikers came across a haunting scene, the dead body of Louise Chaput. Her body showed several stab wounds, clear evidence of her brutal murder. The gruesome discovery caused a stir in the community and left investigators scrambling to solve the mystery of Louise's murder. Her demise sparked concerns and speculation about who the killer could be due to the unclear circumstances. Even with extensive work by the authorities, the situation continued to be shrouded in mystery. Investigators went through evidence, spoke with witnesses, and followed leads, Yet the mysterious culprit continued to evade capture. One prevailing theory proposed that theft could be a potential reason. Louise's blue Canuck sleeping bag and backpack were not found at the location, suggesting that she may have had a confrontation with her attacker. Nevertheless, the pilfered goods had minimal inherent worth, causing some to doubt the reasoning behind the theft. Additionally, the killer's behavior following the murder perplexed investigators even more. Notably, the perpetrators did not steal Louise's car or use her credit or bank cards, indicating that their main goal may not have been financial profit. As the investigation continued, officials felt increasing pressure to solve the case and provide justice for Louise and her bereaved family members. Nevertheless, even with their exhaustive efforts, the trail went cold, and the killer continued to evade identification. In the years after, the unresolved homicide of Louise Chaput remained a haunting presence over the White Mountain, reminding people of the perils hidden in the area's picturesque landscapes. Even with time passing, the memory of Louise's tragic fate remains, serving as a reminder of how fragile life is and the ongoing search for truth and justice. However, despite the ongoing doubts and questions, a pressing question remains. Who was accountable for the tragic murder of Louise Chaput, and will she ever receive justice? Adele Milot was 26 years old, an ex-championship winning athlete, and a mountain guide in training. Born with a passion for the mountains, Milot had risen to prominence as a skimo prodigy in her native France. Skimo, or ski mountaineering, involves climbing mountains and then skiing down them. It's an exciting sport that's set to make its Winter Olympics debut in 2026. Milot won the World Championship in the sport in 2017 and was a European champion in 2018. She retired from the sport in 2019 when she decided to take her love for mountains to another level and become a professional mountain guide. From then on, Milot spent her time climbing in the French Alps, trying to become as familiar with their twists and turns as possible. Her adventurous spirit and love for the outdoors defined her, but it was the same characteristics that ultimately led the young woman to her death. On August 12, 2022, Adele Milot and a friend, an unnamed 30-year-old woman, set out to scale the Aiguille de Payne in the Mont Blanc Massif. The route they had chosen wasn't particularly difficult, but that season had different conditions than usual ones. France had undergone its hottest July since records began, and this also affected Mont Blanc. Rising temperatures and heat waves had significant impacts on its climbing routes, with some paths being closed off because of rockfall danger. Milot and her friend weren't on a closed route, but the recent droughts in the area had made hiking in the Alps more dangerous overall. Still, they weren't even the only people scaling the mountain that day, but Mont Blanc chose to claim them. At some point during their climb, tragedy struck. Other climbers watched helplessly as the two women lost their footing. In an instant, the two women fell down the mountain. Despite being almost frozen with shock, the other group of mountaineers managed to call for help. Seeing the two women fall to their deaths greatly affected the others. They couldn't continue the climb, so they had to be lifted off the mountain. Although the exact circumstances of the fall are unknown, authorities believe the two women were roped together when the accident occurred. Even more, authorities have ruled out a rock fall as the cause. Tributes flooded in from Milot and her climbing partner, whose identity remained unnamed. Olivier Gribert, the chairman of the Company of Guides of Chamonix, spoke of Milot as a luminous young woman, expressing the profound sorrow felt by the entire company. Even the Minister of Sports at the time tweeted a tribute, expressing her deep sadness caused by the death of Adele Milot and the woman who was by her side.
It was a simple autumn day in September 2005 when Tamara Lynn Chipman, a spirited 22-year-old mother from the Wet'suwet'en Nation, vanished without a trace. Tamara, known for her enthusiastic personality and thick curly hair, had spent her childhood in the coastal town of Prince Rupert, British Columbia. Her love for adventure and her close-knit family ties defined her existence until that day when she went on a trip that would lead to her mysterious disappearance. A series of challenges and triumphs marked Tamara's life. Raised in a close family, she spent much of her youth in the company of her beloved grandfather, Jack, a skilled mechanic. Her parents' separation led her to shuttle between Prince Rupert and Terrace, where she formed a bond with her aunt, Gladys Raddick. Despite the difficulties of being a young single mother to her son Jaden, Tamara maintained her feisty spirit, always ready to face life head-on. In the weeks following her disappearance, Tamara found herself in Prince Rupert, her car awaiting repairs in Terrace. On September 21, 2005, she was seen hitchhiking along the outskirts of the town, her destination set for Terrace. It was a standard mode of transportation for Tamara, a way to navigate the long distances between her two homes. Little did anyone know that this routine trip would be her last. Months passed before Tamara's absence was noticed. Her father, Tom Chipman, a commercial fisherman, became alarmed when his attempts to reach her went unanswered. It was not until early November that the tragic reality set in. Tamara was missing. With a heavy heart, Tom reported his daughter's disappearance to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, setting off a chain of events that would leave a community in shock and a family in pain. The search for Tamara was exhaustive, spanning the rugged terrain along Highway 16, known ominously as the Highway of Tears. Volunteers searched the countryside while Tom walked the highway, desperate for any sign of his daughter. Despite these efforts, Tamara remained hidden. Over time, tantalizing clues emerged, hinting at the tragic fate that happened to Tamara. Witnesses came forward recounting a chilling encounter with Tamara and 3 individuals who offered her a ride. According to their testimony, a heated argument ensued, leading to a violent argument that claimed Tamara's life. Her body, they claimed, was disposed of in a remote forest, forever concealing the truth of her demise. The RCMP, tasked with unraveling the web of lies and deceit surrounding Tamara's disappearance, launched a dedicated task force named EPANA. Their mission, to investigate the string of unsolved murders along Highway 16, including Tamara's case. Despite their best efforts, the truth remained a mystery, leaving Tamara's family to grapple with the unanswered questions that haunted them. Tamara's disappearance cast a spotlight on the plight of Indigenous women along the Highway of Tears, a lonely stretch of road where dozens have vanished without a trace. Gladys Raddick, Tamara's aunt, became a tireless advocate for justice, organizing annual walks along the highway to honor the memory of her niece and raise awareness of the ongoing crisis. For Tamara's family, the pain of her absence lingers like an unending nightmare. Her son Jaden, now a young man, carries the burden of his mother's disappearance, haunted by the void left in her wake. Tom Chipman, still reeling from the loss of his daughter, finds peace in the memories they shared, a bittersweet reminder of a life cut short. The search for answers continues as the years pass, fueled by the hope that the truth will come to light one day. Tamara's story serves as one of the many examples of the injustices faced by Indigenous women, their voices silenced by a system that has failed them time and again. In the heartache and sorrow that envelops them, Tamara's family finds strength in each other, united in their search for justice. Tamara Chipman may be gone, but her spirit lives on in the hearts of those who loved her. But as the days turn into weeks and months, the mystery of Tamara's disappearance remains unsolved, leaving her family to wonder, what if justice is never served? What if Tamara's story becomes just another tragic case in the ongoing stretch of Indigenous women lost to the Highway of Tears?
Washington's national parks are usually places where people create beautiful memories filled with adventure. However, they can also be the backdrop for mysterious and deadly events, as was the case for Karen Sykes, a 70-year-old writer and avid hiker. This sad event occurred shortly after another tragic incident had happened in the same park. In late May 2014, less than a month before Karen's death, 6 climbers attempting to reach the summit of Mount Rainier disappeared. Despite extensive search efforts, they were all presumed dead. Like the climbers, Karen Sykes also chose to explore the snowy trails of Mount Rainier National Park to research a story. Known for her insightful trail reviews, captivating photographs, and a book about hiking in Western Washington, Karen left a significant mark on the hiking world. On a cold day, with temperatures dipping as low as 40 degrees Fahrenheit, she ventured with a hiking partner into the Owehigh Lakes Trail at about 5,000 feet elevation. Karen hiked ahead of her partner until they lost contact. After her partner couldn't find her after getting back down, she was declared missing. Rescue teams, both on the ground and in helicopters, tirelessly searched the area around the trail for several days. It wasn't until just before 3 p.m. on a Saturday that a ground crew found her body. While the exact details of her death remained unclear at first, it was later determined that she had died of hypothermia. Those who knew Karen Sykes shared that such a tragedy could happen to anyone, regardless of their experience. Annette Shirey, Karen's daughter from Tucson, Arizona, shared with NBC News how her mother had a profound bond with the mountains. The mountains were always a place that gave her strength and was always uplifting for her, Annette explained. The mountains were not just a backdrop for Karen's hikes. They were a source of spiritual renewal and strength. Annette poignantly added, it helped restore her spirit and her strength. She always said that if her life was going to end, she would want it to end in the mountains. She wouldn't want it to be anywhere else. Kim Brown, a friend and fellow hiker, expressed a poignant reflection on the situation. The mountains are big. There's a lot going on. She was extremely experienced, but experience has nothing to do with any of it.
On March 11, 2023, Teresa Hartley, a 66-year-old woman from St. Augustine, Florida, left her home accompanied by one of her male friends. The two of them had plans. They wanted to go to the Ocala National Forest to gather firewood for a cookout or bonfire. Teresa's husband had died years before in 2016, and ever since then the woman has tried to maintain a sense of normalcy. Her husband John was the love of Teresa's life, and life without him had many difficulties for the sweet, kind-hearted woman. Teresa frequently needed help to make ends meet. Luckily, she had several close friends and family members willing to help with money, car trouble, and food. After John died, Teresa had a friend named Steve move in to make paying rent a less harrowing experience. Seeing Teresa visit or leave her home for short periods wasn't unusual, so nobody even felt it when her friend came to pick her up that day. Teresa said goodbye to her roommate Steve and got into her friend's white Dodge truck with a 20-foot trailer behind it. They drove to Lake Delancey in the Ocala National Forest for a while. The forest covers 607 square miles of land, swamps, springs, lakes, and ponds. It's located in north-central Florida, only an hour from Teresa's home city, St. Augustine. Once they reached their destination, Teresa and her friend collected firewood for their outing. They placed it into the truck and were ready to leave when they realized the car was stuck in the mud, which probably had something to do with the fact that Teresa's friend had chosen to drive his truck and trailer on an ATV road. Since they couldn't get the truck to move, the two friends started walking, leaving the wooded area. They needed to find a place with a cell phone signal and call for help. After a while, though, Teresa's friend decided that the woman's mobility issues hindered their efforts. He told her to return to the truck and wait for him there. The man continued walking, eventually calling his sister and asking her to pick him up. He said they returned to his truck, stuck near North Forest Road 88, to pick up Teresa. Except that the 66-year-old woman wasn't there any longer. Enter Robert Markwell, a longtime friend of Teresa. The younger man had grown up around Teresa and her husband, and had befriended her further in the years since John's passing. Robert and his girlfriend had been helping Teresa pay her bills. In recent months, the woman has been experiencing memory loss. She needed help, and Robert was glad to give it to her. He was also helping her remodel her home in St. Augustine. Robert and his girlfriend had been at the house that morning before Teresa left with her friends to collect firewood. Robert worked on the house there while his girlfriend helped the older woman make sense of some papers. Even more, Teresa was supposed to cook a birthday cake for Robert's girlfriend's surprise party, which was scheduled for Sunday, March 12th. On Sunday, though, when Robert checked on Teresa, he was surprised that she failed to return home the other day. He tried calling her, but then realized her phone was inside her house. He tried to call Teresa's friend, but the man hung up on Robert. Steve, Teresa's roommate, knew nothing of her whereabouts. Robert knew spending a night away from home was nothing like Teresa. But he didn't alert the authorities straight away. Instead, the man reported her missing on March 15, 2023. That's when Kara, Teresa's niece, found out about her aunt's disappearance. The Marion County Sheriff's Office and several search teams scoured the Ocala National Forest, but they only found 2 blue metal chairs that belonged to her and several cigarette butts. But here's where the story becomes complicated. Internet sleuths and Kara Hartley, Teresa's niece, put together some interesting theories supported by bizarre facts. According to Teresa's friends and family, shortly after her disappearance, Robert Markwell and his girlfriend changed the locks on Teresa's home, and they started remodeling it, saying it was what Teresa requested before her disappearance. Robert also paid her property taxes. According to Teresa's close ones, Robert refused to allow volunteer cadaver dogs to walk through the home or property. They even claim Robert was the one to introduce Teresa to the male friend who accompanied her to the Ocala National Forest, a man with a history of violence. Moreover, both Robert Markwell and Teresa's unnamed friend told the police the woman disappeared on the 10th of March, but friends and family claim it happened on the 11th. Teresa's disappearance is still a mystery, but what do you think happened?
Gigi Wu, age 36, was popularly known as the Bikini Hiker. She had gained fame for her unique approach to hiking. She would climb mountains and then pose for pictures in a bikini. This daring choice of attire brought her a lot of attention online, both in Taiwan and internationally. Over a 4-year span, she completed more than 100 hikes and posed in 97 different bikinis, a challenge that started due to losing a bet with a friend. The bet was simple yet unusual. If she lost, she had to take a photo in a bikini on a mountaintop. So what started as a playful punishment turned into her trademark. Unfortunately, her last adventure proved fatal, ending her impressive streak of mountain climbs. Gigi Wu entered Taiwan's Yushan National Park on January 11, 2019. She was attempting a 25-day hike from Nanhua Mountain to Mount Choshi, a trek she announced on Facebook on December 24, 2018 of the previous year. She spent an astonishing 127 days hiking up mountains. That's more than a third of the year spent on trails. While it might seem reckless at first glance, Gigi was actually very cautious. She would normally hike in proper attire and only switch to a bikini once she reached the summit. Despite her playful online persona, she was a seasoned hiker who always used the right equipment and followed safety protocols during her hikes. On another occasion, she shared a photo on Facebook showing her legs covered in cuts and bruises from a previous fall, highlighting the risks involved in her adventures. Tragically, during her 25-day hiking adventure in Taiwan's Yushan National Park, Gigi fell into a ravine. The fall was severe as she dropped between 20 to 30 meters, and this caused a leg injury. She used a satellite phone to call for help. The rescue operation started almost immediately. The National Airborne Service Corps faced a tough challenge in their efforts to rescue Gigi Wu. Despite deploying Black Hawk helicopters on 3 different occasions, they couldn't reach her due to poor weather conditions. With the helicopters unable to assist, the Nantou County Fire Department took on the task by foot, embarking on a grueling 28-hour trek through dangerous terrain. Sadly, by the time the rescuers arrived, they discovered Wu's lifeless body. She had succumbed to hypothermia in the freezing temperatures overnight. Her body was later airlifted from the accident site. The location where Wu's body was found was near the spot she had sent out a distress call. The Nantou Fire Service concluded that she had become trapped due to her fall and ultimately died from the cold. Following her death, her fans poured out their grief on her Instagram and Facebook pages, leaving numerous tributes, expressing their sorrow and admiration. One poignant message captured the sentiments of many, from one fellow hiker to another. May you spend eternity scaling heavenly mountains. A tribute that reflects the deep connection and respect her followers felt for her adventurous spirit.
Sandra Hughes spoke to her family on June 26, 2020. The 54-year-old woman told them she planned a camping trip in the Sierra National Forest. The woman, who had moved to California only 6 months before, suspected she had COVID-19 and told her family she wanted to quarantine in the middle of nature, a decision that may be unusual to most of us. But Sandra Hughes was a trained survivalist, an extremely experienced outdoors woman who knew how to survive even in the harshest conditions. With its stunning mountain scenery and beautiful lakes, Sierra National Forest doesn't fit the bill for the harshest conditions. But that's not to say it doesn't pose its dangers. Still, Sandra Hughes decided, packed her supplies and gears, and dove her silver Saab into the forest. That's the only certainty we have. From there, the facts and details get murky. On July 2, 2020, hikers stumbled upon a campsite. They knew right off the bat something was wrong and decided to contact the sheriff's office to report it immediately. The campsite was incredibly messy, with supplies and gears strewed about. Once authorities arrived at the campsite, they discovered a folder containing several essential documents, including a birth certificate and a social security card. That's how they figured out it all belonged to Sandra Hughes. But there was no trace of the woman. Her tent was still there, but not her sleeping bag. Authorities contacted Sandra's family, but they hadn't spoken with the woman in days. Still, they provided crucial information. Sandra was a trained survivalist who would never leave her belongings in disarray. Leaving a mess behind was extremely out of character for her. Teams of volunteers began the search effort straight away, but they were still looking for a solution. Soon after, though, authorities received baffling information. A woman was seen crashing a silver Saab at less than 20 miles per hour. Witnesses saw the car roll into a ravine in Chiquito Creek, north of Sandra's campsite. They offered to help the woman, but she refused. She hung around the car for a while before walking off and disappearing once again. The car was found 2 days later on July 6th. The search for Sandra Hughes continued. Almost a week later, on July 12th, the police found another piece of the puzzle. They found her sleeping bag 2.5 miles north of where her car was left. Teams of deputies and volunteers searched the area. A California National Guard Black Hawk helicopter was also deployed in an aerial search, while teams of dogs searched the ground. But there was the only sign of Sandra on August 9th, when 2 hunters allegedly spotted her. According to the hunters, they encountered a woman who looked just like Sandra. Same wavy brown hair, same brown eyes, same height, except that she was thinner. She was leaning on a tree along Road 5S01 near Portuguese Creek. The woman didn't wave them down, nor did she appear in distress. She didn't attempt to contact them or get their attention at all. This was the last sighting. In September, a month later, the massive creek fire affected Sierra National Forest. The fire burned many areas, including some near the reported sightings. But authorities kept on searching for the woman and followed all leads, including what sounded like a paranormal encounter. The Gorba family stopped for lunch in the area when their 3-year-old son, Caden, claimed to have seen a motionless woman lying face down with her legs straight up in a nearby meadow. According to him, the woman didn't speak or move. The family rushed to her aid, but there was nobody there. Once alerted, authorities searched the meadow but found nothing. Was it Sandra's ghost that Caden saw? Is the woman, a trained survivalist, still alive? Or is she gone?
23rd, 2008 marked the beginning of what was intended to be an adventurous escapade for Kathleen Terzak, a 50-year-old woman from Elkton, Maryland, and her husband, Bob Terzak, 58. As they were experienced mountaineers, the couple set off on a week-long trek through North Cascades National Park, Washington, fueled by their shared love for the outdoors and their desire to explore the wilderness. Kathleen's life before this fateful journey was one marked by achievement and dedication. Born in Wilmington, Delaware, she graduated from Mount Pleasant High School in 1976, before going on a journey of education and professional success. After obtaining an associate's degree in the sciences from Delaware Technical and Community College, Stanton campus, Kathleen began her career with Stewart Pharmaceuticals, later acquired by AstraZeneca. Her tenure spanned over 25 years, during which she rose to become an associate scientist, earning the respect and admiration of her colleagues. Outside of her professional life, Kathleen was known for her adventurous spirit and passion for outdoor activities. Running, golfing, and maintaining her fitness were integral parts of her lifestyle. However, it was her annual excursions to the mountains with her husband Bob that brought her the greatest joy. Together, they explored the vast wilderness of the western United States and the Pacific Northwest, forging unforgettable memories while exploring nature. As the Terzaks went on their journey into the North Cascades, they were met with unforeseen challenges. The weather, initially forecasted to be mild, quickly turned hostile, with wet, windy conditions making their descent risky and dangerous. In the midst of this adversity, tragedy struck. Kathleen slipped on the rough terrain, and Bob, witnessing her fall, was powerless to prevent it. She plummeted past him into a deep moat formed by snow melting away from a rock face. Despite Kathleen's injuries, Bob sprang into action, hauling her 35 feet up from the bottom of the moat onto the glacier. However, her condition deteriorated rapidly, and she slipped into unconsciousness. With the elements growing fiercer by the minute, Bob made a tent and did his utmost to shield his wife from wind and rain, cutting away her wet clothes and bundling her in their sleeping bags. For a harrowing 24 hours, Bob fought tirelessly to save his wife's life, administering CPR until exhaustion overcame him, and Kathleen succumbed to her injuries on Sunday evening. The loss of his beloved Kathleen weighed heavily on Bob's heart as he faced the daunting task of seeking help in the middle of the unforgiving wild. On Monday, Bob went on a perilous journey to find help, traversing glaciers and rough lands for 10 to 12 hours. Battling fatigue and the elements of nature, he finally reached the north bank of the Cascade River, only to face yet another challenge. Attempting to cross the river, Bob fell into the water and became ensnared beneath a log, narrowly escaping drowning. Despite his injuries and the challenges he encountered, Bob continued, eventually finding help and alerting authorities to Kathleen's whereabouts. However, bad weather delayed the recovery efforts until Thursday, when Kathleen's body was recovered from the tent pitched atop Klawati Glacier. The tragic demise of Kathleen Terzak left a profound impact on her loved ones and the community at large. Questions lingered about the circumstances surrounding her fall and the challenges faced by Bob in his desperate bid for help. What if the weather had been more favorable? What if they had chosen a different route? And most hauntingly, what if Kathleen's life could have been saved? As the investigation unfolded, these questions remained unanswered, leaving behind a sense of sorrow and loss.
It was January 8, 2024, and Donna I. of Washington County, Missouri was feeling unwell. The 44-year-old woman sometimes had limited mobility due to a medical condition and a history of mental health issues. That particular Monday, though, Donna suffered from a headache and general weakness. At about 2:58 that day, an ambulance was called, and Donna I. was transported to Washington County Memorial Hospital. At 44 years old, Donna had 3 children and was already a grandmother. She loved nothing more than spending time with her grandkids. She was very family-oriented and enjoyed watching and cheering on her grandkids in their activities. Donna worked several jobs as a young woman to support her growing family. She finally became a stay-at-home grandmother and cared for her beloved relatives. Donna arrived at the hospital at about 3:25 and was treated for her headache. The hospital staff released her from treatment and discharged her at 5:51, but she didn't go home immediately upon release. Instead, the woman walked to the emergency department lobby and sat down for hours until late at night, when hospital staff decided she needed to go home. It so happened that a Potosi municipal police officer was present at the hospital for an unrelated call for service. He was contacted by hospital staff and was asked to take Donna home. The police officer, however, believed Donna still needed medical attention. He was concerned about her well-being and asked the emergency department staff to reassess Donna. However, they should have done so and asked Donna where she lived. Afterward, the police officer requested a Washington County deputy to transport Donna. He couldn't take her home because her house was outside the city limits of Potosi. A Washington County female deputy arrived at the hospital and escorted Donna to her vehicle. They departed at 11:40 p.m. After a while, they reached Shirley School Road within Mark Twain National Forest, which spans 29 counties and represents a large percentage of Missouri's forested land. It was dark outside, and the deputy didn't know where Donna lived. That's probably why the deputy let her go when Donna asked to be dropped off at Forest Service Road 2375, at the intersection of Shirley School Road. After all, Donna told her that was where she wanted out because that was the beginning of her driveway. Donna exited the car, and the deputy returned to service a little after midnight. In reality, though, Donna was erroneously left in the middle of the forest about a mile from her house. Donna never made it home that night. She was reported missing 2 days later on January 11th. Deeply concerned, Donna's family searched for the woman, combing through Mark Twain National Forest. They found something the very same day. A duffel bag, the one Donna had taken with her to the hospital, was found on a snowy hill not far from her house. It contained makeup items and clothes. Still, there was no trace of the woman. In the meantime, the Washington County Sheriff's Office also started searching. Multiple fire departments and dog teams joined the search. Trail camera footage revealed the presence of a green truck in the area near the time Donna was dropped off. The truck's owner was brought in for a police interview. The man told them he spotted Donna's duffel bag in the early morning hours of January 9th, but didn't contact authorities. He was released with no charges. After days of searching, Donna's body was found east of the initial search area, on a farm less than a half-mile south of State Route 8. The police investigation continued, mainly because so many details remained confusing. Why was there a delay in reporting Donna missing? Why did Donna ask to be dropped off in the forest? These are some of the questions that still lurk, waiting for answers.
The cool September breeze swept over New Hampshire in 1855. 23-year-old Lizzie Bourne from Kennebunk began her last adventure, a hike up Mount Washington. With her adventurous spirit, Lizzie eagerly got ready to conquer the 6,288-foot mountain, joined by her Uncle George, Cousin Lucy, and Uncle George's wife, Aunt Jane. Their adventure started without any trouble. They took the morning train from Saco, Maine, and arrived at the Glen House, a charming hotel located at the foot of the mountain. A mix of excitement and nervousness hung in the air as they looked at Mount Washington's daunting peak, covered in mist. Ignoring the warnings of bad weather to come, Lizzie urged her Uncle George and his daughter Lucy to start climbing right away, instead of waiting until morning. They embarked on the 8-mile carriage trail to the summit with enthusiasm and a longing for adventure. By 4 p.m., the group started feeling tired and took a short break at the halfway house. At this location, construction workers, aware of the approaching storm, suggested that they abandon their climb. Nevertheless, driven by a strong will and misconception regarding their chances of beating the elements, the girls convinced Uncle George to continue the trek, ignoring the warnings as mere speculation. Visibility decreased and temperatures dropped as darkness fell over the mountain. The group fought to stay oriented in the dangerous terrain, battling strong winds and dense fog. Even with all the hard work they put in, they came to the unsettling realization that their journey was not yet complete. With determination, Uncle George built a basic rudimentary stone wall to protect his loved ones from the harsh conditions in a last-ditch effort to survive, a feeble wall against the unrelenting elements. All night long, he carefully looked after Lizzie and Lucy, providing whatever small amount of comfort he could during the never-ending storm. Regrettably, Uncle George's worst fears were realized at approximately 10 p.m. when he went to see the girls and saw that Lizzie was not moving. He held her hand and noticed it was chilly. Lizzie's motionless body showed no indication of life. She had succumbed to the harsh elements of Mount Washington, and amidst its terrain, she took her last breath. The morning offered no comfort as Uncle George and Lucy, dealing with sorrow and shock, sought help from the tip-top house. 4 individuals descended and brought Lizzie's lifeless body back to the hotel. The group tried for 4 hours to bring Lizzie back with hot rocks and hot baths, but she was already gone. The workers quickly constructed a wooden box, and several women carefully placed Lizzie inside. Utilizing a pole and leather straps, 2 men assisted the grieving family and cautiously descended the mountain with Lizzie's body. The group arrived at the Glen House following a journey that lasted 3 hours. Aunt Jane welcomed them with a gloomy expression. The group traveled back to Portland on the train with the coffin. After the tragic death of Lizzie, there were unanswered questions about how she died. It was found that she was unprepared for the climb's challenges, dressed in clothes not appropriate for the harsh mountain conditions. Lizzie was dressed appropriately for the weather, wearing multiple petticoats, a thick dress, a scarf, wool cloak, and a bonnet. The garments were 35 pounds, heavy, and soaked from the rain. Additionally, her unidentified heart issue could have increased her vulnerability to the surroundings, emphasizing the importance of being adequately prepared and careful when venturing into the wilderness. Also, it later came to light that no one in the hiking group had brought water or was adequately equipped for the weather. Nevertheless, despite the sorrow and regret following Lizzie's untimely death, her story still serves as a cautionary tale of the severe conditions of Mount Washington and the importance of heeding its warnings. Lizzie's story is a collection of what-ifs. What if they had heeded the warnings before proceeding? What if they had known about Lizzie's heart condition? What if they had been better prepared for the journey? Regardless, one thing is for sure. The life of a young and adventurous woman was cut short, as the slopes of Mount Washington claimed. In Glendive, Montana, a 36-year-old woman named Renee Arcand embarked on a journey that would take an unexpected turn. Renee, a Wisconsin native, had set out on a road trip from her home state to Oregon, planning to enjoy the tranquility of Montana's wilderness. Little did she know that her adventure would take a distressing twist. Renee had chosen to camp near the Yellowstone River at the Intake Fishing Access Site, a picturesque spot 15 miles north of Glendive. Yellowstone River flows through northwestern Wyoming, southern and eastern Montana, and northwest North Dakota, and covers an area of 692 miles. The river is so dangerous that it is approximately 42 feet deep. It was a simple plan to camp for 5 days, surrounded by nature's beauty. However, on the night of Monday, June 26, 2023, something went awry. Standing 5 foot 5 inches with hazel eyes and brown hair, Renee mysteriously vanished, leaving her companion in utter distress. On the fateful morning of Friday, June 30th, 2023, a sense of urgency gripped Renee Arcand's companion as they discovered her mysterious disappearance. Desperation led them to search near the camping station. Still, Renee was nowhere to be found, deepening the mystery surrounding her vanishing. Soon, they reported her missing to the authorities. The once joyful camping trip became a frantic search for a missing soul. With her companion's plea for help, the Dawson County Sheriff's Department and the Richland County Sheriff's Department initiated searches to unravel the mystery. Renee's companion, gripped with worry, shared the details of her last known whereabouts. The campsite near the Intake Diversion Dam became the focal point of the search efforts. As the days unfolded, the search extended to include the neighboring areas and the Yellowstone River, covering approximately 70 miles. Desperation grew as searches on land, air, and water failed to yield any trace of Renee. Helicopters circled the skies. Drones scoured the terrain. Despite the high water level, 2 boats navigated the river without seeing the missing woman. The efforts were never-ending, but the high waters and muddy river proved formidable obstacles. As days turned into weeks, the community's gratitude extended to the Richland County Sheriff's Department, who tirelessly joined the search. Badlands Search and Rescue from Watford City, North Dakota, supported the efforts. Daily searches became a routine, each passing day marked by uncertainty. Sheriff Ross Kanan expressed gratitude, but acknowledged their challenges to find Renee. Mother Nature seemed to hold the key to the unfolding mystery. Despite the absence of eyewitnesses, the authorities believed their best guess that Renee might have gone into the water. Suppose the scenario is as speculative as it seems. In that case, the grim reality sets in, and Renee's survival chances diminish. The river might have brutally swallowed Renee, taking her into the darkest depths of its powerful currents. Her chances of defeating nature's forces become gradually slim in such a dire situation. The raging river, a powerful force, may have ended up being the regrettable destination, concealing Renee's fate in the mysterious and dangerous waters, and forcing those looking for her to face the brutal reality of nature's relentless force. However, in that small Montana town, the quiet wilderness echoed with the collective hope of finding Renee Arcand. The once serene campsite bore the weight of an unsolved puzzle, and the Yellowstone River whispered secrets yet to be uncovered.
It was around noon on March 7, 2021, when Narina Avakian left her home in Glendale, California. The 37-year-old woman was an experienced hiker. She was used to hiking with large groups, but lately, she'd been hiking solo more and more. That day, she told her family she was going on a one-day hiking expedition in the Angeles National Forest, but she didn't tell them what route she was planning to take. The Angeles National Forest covers over 700,000 acres in the San Gabriel Mountains and Sierra Pelona Mountains. It's a beautiful place, but can also be dangerous, especially if the weather conditions are unfavorable. But that day, they started beautifully. The weather was fair, so the forest was dry, perfect for a hike. Except that Narina Avakian never returned home. Her family decided to notify authorities that she was missing, and thus a search ensued. But the fair weather didn't last long. Snowstorms ensued. Narina's family received a tip about the woman's car 4 days later. They found Narina's vehicle, a 2019 white Subaru Impreza sedan, parked at the Buckhorn Day use area along Angeles Crest Highway. However, with 5 trails starting from the parking area, authorities faced another problem. They decided to search all 5 trails, knowing that some sit at elevations of up to 8,000 feet. By the end of that week, 25 teams were looking for Narina, with people coming from 17 different counties to help. A helicopter team was also deployed. The team searched until 2 a.m. that Friday, but had to stop due to heavy snowfall. Saturday saw a break in the unfavorable weather, and the teams could resume their search. It was then, on March 13th, that a 3-person team located Narina's body around noon. She was at an elevation of 8,000 feet, near the Mount Waterman Trail. The trail is more than 2.75 miles long and provides a secluded hiking experience. Narina's body was airlifted. Her death was ruled an accident, and the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner coroner ruled that Narina's death was caused by hypothermia and environmental exposure. But the time of death is unknown. Why did an experienced hiker like Narina hike alone in such conditions? What caused her to lose her way or succumb to the elements despite her skills? Was there something or someone else that contributed to her tragic fate? These questions linger, casting a shadow over the serene beauty of the Angeles National Forest.
In the vast American landscape, 22-year-old Gabby Petito embarked on a road trip with her 23-year-old boyfriend, Brian Laundrie. The journey promised adventure and discovery, but it took a chilling turn when Gabby ceased contact with her family in August 2021. Amid the unknown trails and open roads, Brian Laundrie became a person of interest as the haunting silence surrounded Gabby's disappearance. He vanished without a trace, setting off an intense search by the FBI and Florida police in a sprawling nature reserve. Gabby's last connection with her family echoed from the picturesque Grand Teton National Park on August 25th. A realm of natural beauty, it soon became the focal point of a mystery that would captivate the nation. As the search unfolded, a peculiar aspect of the Yellowstone National Park region reignited discussions about the infamous Zone of Death. A legal anomaly, this 80-kilometer strip of land straddling Idaho and Wyoming presented a challenge for law enforcement. A glitch in the Constitution rendered it difficult to police, leaving a theoretical haven for criminals. Michigan State University law professor Brian Kalt's 2005 academic paper, The Perfect Crime, highlighted the legal problem. In this zone, spanning both states, felonies might be committed with impunity due to jurisdictional complexities. The clash of Idaho and Wyoming, a constitutional enigma, posed a unique challenge to justice. The Sixth Amendment demanded criminal prosecutions within the state and district where the crime occurred. Yet the zone's peculiar legal status made summoning a jury nearly impossible, creating a potential loophole for those seeking to evade justice. Against this backdrop, the search for Gabby Petito intensified. National Park Rangers combed through Grand Teton, deploying elite search and rescue units to unravel the mystery concealed within the vast wilderness. Gabby's final text message warned of Yosemite National Park's impending lack of phone service, adding an eerie note to her journey. Days later, her van surfaced in Florida and raising more questions than answers. As investigators delved into the Florida wilderness, Brian Laundrie's potential whereabouts became a focal point. The Mabry-Carlton Reserve, a sprawling 25,000-acre habitat, drew attention as reports surfaced that he could be concealed within its depths. FBI agents and local police meticulously combed through the reserve, prompted by Laundrie's family suggesting he might have entered the area. The search unfolded against the backdrop of a picturesque road trip documented on Instagram, capturing the idyllic moments of their journey across the U.S. However, the narrative turned sinister as more than 2 weeks passed since Brian Laundrie returned to his Florida home alone, leaving unanswered questions and an unsettling void. Gabby's family, growing increasingly concerned, filed a missing person report on September 11th. As the story unfolded, the Northport police faced a complex scenario. Brian Laundrie's parents, claiming not to have seen their son since Tuesday, contacted the FBI. Though Laundrie was a person of interest, he was not yet wanted for a crime, adding a layer of complexity to the evolving situation. Amidst the twists and turns of this unfolding tale, the road trip that once symbolized adventure and romance transformed into a mystery, shrouded in the vast landscapes of the American West. As the haunting mystery of Gabby Petito's disappearance lingers, the search for answers has intensified. Despite relentless efforts, no significant clues have emerged to unveil Gabby's whereabouts. Adding complexity to the puzzle, her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie, has mysteriously escaped from his home, deepening the case's intrigue.
Lucy Ann Johnson married her husband Marvin Johnson in Blaine, Washington in April 1954. The couple went on to have 2 children, a daughter, Linda, who was born in the year of their marriage, and a son, Daniel, who was born in 1955. Lucy, Marvin, and their kids moved several times before finally settling in Surrey, sometime in either 1955 or 1956. There, they lived together for a few years. From outside, theirs was a quiet life. There are no significant events known to the public from that period. From inside, though, things were probably very far from what they seemed to be. Surrey, which is a part of Metro Vancouver, is a city of about 500,000. A lot can happen in a city that size without anyone noticing. But Lucy's neighbors noticed something about the woman. They noticed she had disappeared. Lucy was last seen by a neighbor in September 1961 on the 10,300 block of 145 A Street in Surrey. 4 years later, on May 14, 1965, Marvin Johnson, Lucy's husband, finally reported her missing. But why did he wait so long to alert authorities? Was he somehow involved? The authorities immediately decided something was off about the case. They suspected foul play and, as in many of these cases, considered the husband a suspect. They started investigating straight away, and even got permission to excavate in Marvin's yard, looking for a body, or at least for some clues into the woman's disappearance. But they found nothing. Either Marvin Johnson was a cunning killer who'd murdered his wife and then cleverly disposed of her body, or Lucy Johnson vanished in thin air. With no evidence pointing to Marvin being the killer, police tried to find other leads. But months passed. Months turned into years. Years turned into decades. And there was still no trace of Lucy Johnson. Over the years, investigators compared DNA samples from unidentified remains to the DNA of Linda and Daniel, the couple's children, but to no avail. Daniel died as a teen. Marvin Johnson eventually died in the late 1990s. Linda, Johnson's daughter, was all that was left of the family. She had been around 7 years old the last time she'd seen her mother. Decades later, Linda had no answer. In 2013, Linda was in her 50s, but she had never given up hope of finding out what had happened to her mother, Lucy. It was June when something grasped Linda's attention. Almost 52 years after her mother's disappearance, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police highlighted Lucy's case as a cold one, part of their Missing of the Month series. Surrey RCMP's renewed efforts to locate Lucy prompted Linda's independent quest for answers. She didn't know much about her mother, but she did know one thing. Her mother's birthplace was in Alaska, and she had lived in the Yukon for some time until 1953. Armed with this information, Linda placed advertisements in multiple northern newspapers, asking for tips about her mother's case. Linda didn't expect her sister to answer her plea for help. She didn't even know she had a sister until Rhonda called her in July, telling her she had seen the newspaper articles and was positive Lucy Johnson was her mother. Linda had a lot of questions, most of them being why. Rhonda told her she believed Lucy had left Marvin over a domestic dispute situation, though she hadn't gotten a lot of details from Lucy. Lucy then remarried and had 3 children, Rhonda and 2 others. They all lived in British Columbia until the 80s before moving to Yukon. Linda eventually reconnected with her mother Lucy on the phone. The conversation was awkward at first, but they found their footing quickly and exchanged I love yous before promising to meet up in person.